Good afternoon. My name is Winifred Allen. I'm a licensed marriage, family, and child therapist, the co-chair of the Health Committee, and the president, CEO, founder of Stand With No Apology, Mental Health Therapy and Advocacy, PLC. We are the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Northern Virginia chapter. Our mission is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls to promote leadership, development, and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. Health is a vital component of a thriving community. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated is concerned about the well-being of the whole community and the whole person, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Our priority focus is childhood and family obesity, cancer health disparities, metabolic syndrome, prevention and decreasing mortality, improving health outcomes, access to affordable health care, culturally competent research, and quality of life in regard to public safety and crime. Today, the Health Committee presents Surviving the 2022 Holidays by Protecting Your Mental Health. This year, the chapter is highlighting the importance of mental health during the holidays. The last 2 years have been historically different across the world, throughout the country, in our workplaces, families, and communities. This time of year, several people struggle with depression and/or seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD. This is a type of seasonal depression that affects many women. Reverend Dr. Latasha Morgan, assistant to the pastor for counseling at Alfred Street Baptist Church, will be sharing signs and symptoms of seasonal affective disorder and self-care techniques. Now we will have a few remarks from our Health Committee Chair.
Good afternoon. On behalf of National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Northern Virginia chapter, all of our members and our executive board, our president, Ms. Gina Wood, I just want to thank Reverend Dr. Morgan from Alfred Street Baptist Church. I want to thank everyone who's tuning in today to support this great initiative. It is our goal, our mission, as Ms. Allen stated, to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls, and mental health is our focus during this time of year. We appreciate your support. If there is anything that sticks out with you during this presentation, please feel free to send a chat. We plan to provide resource numbers for any issue that you may have. Thank you for getting on. We pray that you enjoy this presentation and that you have a safe and enjoyable holiday season.
Thank you so much, Anita. As always, we provide a medical disclaimer. These events are for information and educational purposes only. The National Coalition of Black Women does not provide medical advice of any nature. The information and materials provided during this event are not intended to serve as a substitute for medical advice. Participants are encouraged to consult a medical professional or healthcare provider if they are seeking medical advice, diagnoses, treatment, or experiencing a mental health or medical emergency. We are so happy today to have Reverend Dr. Morgan here with us today. I'm going to give a brief introduction. I believe that as therapist to therapist, it's always good to have these type of webinars so that we can provide information to our community and those just in the public so they understand certain mental health diagnoses and what they look like and what they present as. So Reverend Morgan is the assistant to the pastor for counseling at Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia. She is a licensed professional counselor, a nationally certified counselor, and a certified family trauma professional. Reverend Morgan integrates Christian faith and theology with psychoeducation and therapy. We are so honored and grateful today to have you in our space to talk about seasonal affective disorder. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that introduction, and I would like to just take a moment and thank the respected officers and the sisters, as I've heard you all refer to one another, of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women of Northern Virginia. I'm just going to give you just some applause for the work that you all are doing. And again, thank you for having me as a guest today. I also would like to thank Ms. Hanita Garner. She made the initial contact, and we have been in touch, making certain that all of this comes together, and the Health Committee planning team. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd like to thank each and every one of you all for attending on today. I know it may take you away from some other things, some lunch, but we are grateful that you're here. And as it has already been shared, again, this is an informational webinar to help guide you in determining if care is needed. And also, we hope to provide you with some tools and tips to help you on that journey. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll share the presentation with the team. There are also some tools and tips that will be available, so please look out for that in your email when it comes. So as it has been shared, we will talk today around, there it is, okay. So we will talk today around seasonal affective disorder. And my question to you right off of the break, what are you aware of? Because before we start drilling down and looking at symptoms of seasonal affective disorder, it really is going to take us on a journey that has us answer this question: what are we aware of? And so as we move forward, I would like to begin with a grounding exercise. I am adding this exercise because, as I just stated, we all are right now in this moment. I'm transitioning from a session. You may be transitioning from your day-to-day work. You might be in your car trying to have your lunch and participate at the same time. We're all kind of multitasking. And so before we can even get to a place of awareness, it is extremely important that we begin with grounding. And this is a technique that you can take away with you beyond this moment. And so I'm just going to ask that you make a tight fist, and you don't have to use both. You can use one, whatever is available and comfortable in this moment. Just make a really tight fist. And while you're making that fist, I am just going to ask you to focus for just a few seconds on the energy that you are placing in making this fist, okay? I'm also going to ask that you take a few really deep breaths while continuing to hold the tight fist. Maybe a couple more. Continuing to push energy into the fist. One more big breath. Now, slowly, I'm going to ask that one finger at a time that you will walk with me through the following. So, starting from, let's see, 5. All right. So, one finger. I would like for you to open one finger and think about things that you can see. Just take a look around where you are and count 5 things that you can see. And if you can do that, we ought to thank God for the gift of sight in this moment. Unfolding another finger, the next observance is to look at 4 things, find 4 things that you can actually touch. And we thank God for the ability of movement. Old church used to say, a reasonable portion of health and strength. I'll take it. Amen. Next, unfolding another finger. Listen for 3 things that you can hear. Thanking God for the gift of hearing. Unfolding a 4th finger. 2 things that you can smell. I hope you're not like me with the breakfast sandwich still sitting on your desk that you haven't eaten, but I still smell it. All right, and then now with your whole hand open, we're down to 1, and 1 thing you can taste. Maybe a sip of water, reminding us to hydrate, a bite of your lunch, a piece of gum, whatever you have. And now our hands are completely open. Just open both hands, stretch those fingers wide. And again, breathing. And I don't know about you, but I personally can attest to the fact that I feel less energetic as I did from the beginning to this moment. I feel a bit more connected with what I'm going to share. And though I can't see you, I know that you're there. I feel even more connected to you in this moment. So I invite you to hold on to that. Again, anytime you feel that you need grounding, and that really is every moment and opportunity that we can take. So why is grounding important, Reverend Morgan? Grounding is important for a number of reasons. Grounding helps us to reduce our stress levels. It helps us to regulate our breathing. It helps us to become more connected. Medical experts and scholars also say that grounding helps to decrease inflammation in our body. It helps us to become more centered so that we don't have thoughts that are kind of here, there, and everywhere, that we're able to focus in for the moment on what it is that we are working on. It also helps us to gain strength, gain a sense of balance, easiness, steadiness. It helps us to lessen the tension that we feel in and outside and around our bodies. It also helps us to improve our relationship with God. And the one that I have highlighted in the middle is awareness. It helps us to become even more aware of what's happening, what we're thinking, what we're feeling inside of our bodies, and what are we experiencing around us. So grounding is an important tool that we cannot get enough of. I highlight awareness in the middle of the previous slide because without grounding, we cannot properly become aware of what's going on with us. So imagine if I had just jumped into the presentation, not taking time to breathe and ground myself, I probably still, and I'm going to be very personal and transparent, I probably still will be thinking about all of the events that have occurred this morning. I am an early riser. I get up at 5 o'clock. I have done probably a military run at this point at 12:18 p.m., probably more than most people will do in a day. And if I had not taken that time to ground and center, I cannot be present with you in this moment, and nor am I able to be able to walk you, not successfully or proficiently or effectively, walk through this presentation with what is necessary so that you walk away armed with new information. My mind would probably still be racing about how it took so long for my daughter to get up this morning, how the dog didn't want to come in the house, why the traffic went right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But grounding allows me to kind of put those things to the side and be present in the moment. And everyone has probably heard that phrase before, being present in the moment. Being present in the moment means that your mind, your body, your intention is focused on what it is that you are doing right here, right now. And this is key when we're talking about becoming more aware. And awareness is key because if we're going to start looking at, which we'll get to in just a moment, if we're going to start looking at symptoms of seasonal affective disorder, we have to be aware of what it is that we're searching for. Awareness helps us to be in investigation mode, and it helps us really to clearly identify and connect with what is going on with us, right? As I mentioned earlier, many of us are in a transition right in this moment around the lunch hour. Right now, most of us are multitasking, attempting to gain something from this webinar, but also with the next thing that you have to do really close to it. And so here is a takeaway activity that I'm going to share with you. I use this quite often as I'm working with clients here at the center at the church. And this really does help you get into a place of becoming more aware. It's called SPPR, just as you see on the screen, and hopefully I am in presentation mode. It's stop, pause.
Reverend
Correct.
Morgan,
Yes.
can you just double check that presentation mode?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Is that better? Are you able to better see the slides at this point? If someone could just nod or, yeah.
Reverend Morgan, I'm able to see your slides. They look fine
Okay.
on my end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let's see. Let me stop for a second and let's see. Please take a moment to check the slides. All right. If you could just let me know if you are able to see them, and then I'll keep moving forward. My apology for that. So back to SPPR. The first S is to stop. And again, we're talking about how can we become more aware. So in stopping, that means as soon as you notice that you're doing a behavior that you're not necessarily in tune with, that you don't want to display or exhibit in the moment, stop. Okay? Perhaps it is negative thinking. Perhaps you're having a pattern in a moment of just constant negative thinking. And as soon as you are aware of that, the first S employs you to stop, right? The next letter is P for pause. There is a difference between stopping and pausing. Stopping is an immediate halt, an immediate end to a particular activity or thought, right? But when we transition and shift into pause, that is going to help us spend some time with some other parts of ourselves and what's happening within us. The first part of that is being mindful. So in the pause moment, you're able to collectively be mindful of what's happening, being mindful of where you would like to be versus where you currently are. And also shifting in some tools that help you become more mindful in the moment. We'll talk a little bit more about that. In the pause, you're able to tolerate your distress a bit better versus continuing to go on after you have experienced the situation that has your anxiety a bit heightened, that has your your stress level heightened, or perhaps even has angered you. So you're able to handle and tolerate yourself. We're going to use that word regulate in just a moment in this area. Emotional regulation. When you are in a pause mode, you are able to better manage your emotions. You can slow your system down and say, now, wait a minute, why am I reacting this way? Why do I feel this way? What has triggered me? And then the last piece is you're able to better make this internal connection, which helps us transition over to pray. This part is, I really employ people here. Like, this is your ugly prayer to God. This is not the pretty prayer, oh, Father God, and then, no, this is God, listen, I'm in a bad way. I need your help right now. Listen, if I have to continue engaging with these people in this way, in this environment, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I need you to come in and help me. It's that honest, earnest, right in the moment prayer, that authentic prayer that calls on the internal connection that we have with God. And here, God can be the God of your understanding. So the God of your understanding, calling on strength, connection, and engagement in that moment. Now, you might have to go back to stop. You might have to go back to pause. You might have to go back to pray before you're ready to re-engage. So you can use kind of these steps as stepping stones. And when you're ready to re-engage, that's exactly what you do. So now, if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about at this point, please utilize the chat. We will leave time to move forward in that direction. All right, so now this brings us to the topic of our session today around seasonal affective disorder. So just to recap, remember, we had to just kind of ground ourselves so we can be present in the moment. Once we ground ourselves, it hopefully will help you be in a place where you are better able to be more aware, because now we're getting to the part where you might have to ask yourself some questions. And I encourage you, if you are a journaler or a note taker, to please just write down some notes, because again, this is not medical advice, but it's information that you've become aware of that will help you when you do seek, if in fact you need medical advice. All right. So now, seasonal affective disorder, it really is a thing. All right. If you have noticed a swift transition when daylight savings time occurred a few weeks back, the days got longer and darker. You wake up in the morning, it's dark. You come home in the evening, it's dark. And if you've noticed a shift within yourself, you may be having some impact as a result of seasonal affective disorder or the season change. So notably, the first symptom or consideration is just to let you know that the seasonal affective disorder is a type of seasonal depression. That means that it's temporary. It doesn't last always. If that is the case, that means that you probably need to talk to someone, because there may be something more severe or significant happening outside of this temporary situation. This happens because what we're used to, having fun in the sun until 6 and 7 o'clock in the evening, turns into darkness around 4:45, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast, right? And so where you were used to kind of rising with the sunset, ending with still some daylight, now it's darkness. And on top of that, the winter is here and it's cold. So that means that we lack natural light because it is the winter months. And so if you are experiencing symptoms of SAD, you might notice that you feel a persistent, so that's a constant kind of low level mood change, and you're not really enjoying the things that you normally would do or that you would normally find fun. Being tired. Now, I probably would check the box if I was doing a survey around this because I'm always tired, right? But tiredness is another common symptom of seasonal affective disorder. You may feel a bit more tired than normal during the day and still find it difficult to get out of the bed, get your normal routine going. You also may find that you're craving carbs, all right? Now we can blame it on soul food. Listen, this is soul food season. We've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, we've got holiday parties, and all of the bells and whistles, team lunches, all those things in between, filled with really good, yummy comfort foods. But if you are, really the notice here is that if you don't typically have those things and there is a craving that, you just have to have them outside of just minimal enjoyment for regular activities and events, then that may signify that something more is happening, okay? And the last thing to kind of look out for is if you are experiencing a low mood over a long period of time. So maybe in the morning, it takes you a little longer to kind of adjust to the day and get out of the bed, etc. But by the time you get through traffic to your destination, get to your desk or your office or your in-home workplace, you feel like yourself again. That's fine. But if you find that you are feeling that low mood for a long period of time, then that's something that should go on your list so that you and your doctor can have a conversation and just rule out depression, right? Now, just want to share with you that this diagnosis actually falls under major depressive disorder. And so for the clinicians in the room, our working Bible is the DSM, and the DSM-5 is the current edition, and then there is one that has been recently updated. So you won't find seasonal affective disorder listed separately. It actually falls under major depressive disorder with seasonal pattern. And so if in fact you work with a clinician or MD and they find that likely this is what you are experiencing, you'll probably hear some of these following descriptions. It's the onset of temporary depressive episodes and symptoms at a particular time of the year, typically fall, winter, okay? When the spring comes, you got your pep in your step and you're back to doing your thing, all right? And so that's a good thing. So that means that it's temporary. It only lasted through the fall and the winter, the colder, darker seasons. And as soon as the first bud comes through the ground or blossoms on the tree, you are smiling from ear to ear because this is your time, all right? There is a pattern of symptoms that have occurred. So this is what you're noticing and becoming more aware of, that there's a pattern that has developed where the rest of the year, I didn't have any depressive symptoms. I felt fine. I was doing, all the things I love to do, moving about without any issues. And it's not until the season, the weather, daylight saving times happens that I start feeling this way. And if you've noticed that kind of consecutively for 2 years or more, then likely you might be shifting into a place where seasonal affective disorder is kind of interrupting the flow, all right? Now, here are some best treatments from the experts and scholars in the psychological area. Get more daylight. So that means, I know it's cold, wrap up good, put your coat on, go outside for a walk. You'll get 2 benefits in one. You'll get some exercise and you'll get some daylight. I'm in an office where thankfully I have windows and I have my blinds pulled all the way up so that I can get natural sunlight in because I just vibe off of the sunlight. I need the sunlight. It gives me, and I'm a summer baby. And so listen, when the summertime comes, I am the most joyful person All my friends and family, they're like, oh Lord, here she comes. Because I'm like, little Miss Sunshine, because it's bright, it's sunny, and it's warm. So I lift the blinds to make sure that I get some daylight. It is a recommendation that you maybe even kind of look at adding some vitamin D. And if you're not taking vitamins, talk to your doctor about that. You may have to just kind of, onboard a bit of that. Reduce your stress levels. Listen, we've got to figure out how to pull away from some of the stuff that's pulling on us so heavy. And that connects us with self-care, right? Being able to be in a position that we take better care of ourselves, because why? We are more aware of what's happening and where we are and behaviors that we don't necessarily want to exhibit. And why? How do we get there? Because we have taken time to ground and do grounding exercises to help us slow down enough to notice what's happening within us and around us. Another tip is to be a bit more social. And in this case, because we are still very much in a COVID environment, do it virtually, do it in person, with safety, with distance, but do something to increase your levels to the best of your ability and to the level you are comfortable. You can look up daylight lamps and daylight lamp clocks. That may help. It literally is just a lamp you could sit in a room and just spend some time in there getting and soaking in daylight to help you. And the last thing is consistent self-care. And regardless of gender, but especially women, we have got to do a better job of maintaining our self-care. We've got to do a better job of being more consistent around that area, because we wear so many hats. We wear so many hats at home, at work, in our communities. I heard Sister Winifred and I heard Sister Hanita talking earlier briefly as we were preparing, and they both were like, well, I'm here and I'm doing this and I'm trying to get here and I want to, right? Everyone has a lot of hats. So we've got to get our self-care plans developed, and not just going to get a manicure, not just going to get a spa day, which all are great and all are wonderful self-care activities, but more so planning and goal setting around how you can be more intentional around that. And in the tool resource guide that I've shared, there's a link to a self-care guide that I think you'll find helpful in guiding you around that. Everybody is at risk for seasonal affective disorder, to be quite honest. The best indicator of future risk, however, is previous history. So thinking about your previous history, especially around depression, and around times where you have noticed significant changes in your mood as it relates to the temperature, weather, and time frame. Going into winter, being stressed or depressed will raise your risk of depression during the winter, okay? So just kind of taking inventory of what's happening in and around your life that's impacting you, and being able to remove what you can, because here's an area we really do have some control. Sometimes we just need to say no. Sometimes we just need to say, I can't be there. Sometimes we just need to say, I need a moment. Sometimes we need to have an honest conversation with ourselves and say, I'm really not in a good place, and I need to sit down and sit with that and see why. Experts and scholars also say, take into account your family history. And so persons in your family struggle with depression, struggle with transitioning in the seasons, have some other probably comorbid diagnoses and things happening. health concerns, illnesses, if you're a caregiver, right? These are very heavy spaces that we're carrying and operating in our lives. And the last one is that to some extent, again, people will feel a shift in their mood because the sun isn't out. Who doesn't love sunshine? And so that causes a disruption in our circadian rhythm. It is, it looks like I deleted my comment behind there, but what we were used to doing all spring, summer long suddenly gets interrupted, and then our days are cut, daylight is cut shorter, causes our rhythm, our natural rhythm to be thrown off. And so it happens to everyone. Most people adjust within a few weeks, but some not so much, okay? Again, seasonal affective disorder lasts as long as daylight savings time. So right up until we get to the spring and the time change happens. The good news is that the Senate has passed the bill to make daylight saving time no longer a thing. We're just waiting on Congress. Congress is split. But that says that we won't even do these time changes twice a year anymore if passed and if your state is in agreement. And some states have already gone along with, like, we like that, we're going to do it even if they don't pass it. So we'll see what happens around that. But in the meantime, what's more important and significant is you thinking about how you can control and respond to your situation. All righty, so we're almost done, and you'll get this information in the resource packet as well. But here are some tools and tips as you are thinking about seasonal affective disorder, or if not to that extreme, just a little struggle around transitioning and adjusting to the time change in the winter. Check in with yourself. You can use that SPPR. It's free, all right? I just gave it to you for free. Use that. Stop, pause, pray, re-engage. And you do the first 3 steps as many times as you need to until you're ready to re-engage. Get outside, get some sunlight. Do your best to enjoy, even in the cold weather, a bit more of the day. Figure out what kind of exercise regularly that you can do. Definitely not telling you to go sign up for spin, but if that's your thing, go spin. My thing is walking. I've got a dog, and so I try to take him out every day if it's not too dark when I get home and in the morning. So just trying to figure out like what works for you, but just get moving. Grab a friend and get moving if you need to. We talked about the vitamin D. We talked about reducing your stress levels. We talked about being more social. And let's see, consistent self-care. And so I have a guide that will help you develop and draw up your self-care plan. Helps you look at what self-care is, what it isn't, and how really it should become a way of life, not just things we do. Take some time to journal. And if you are an outdoors person and you can stand, a bit more, temperature's still pretty mild here in the DMV area, take your journal, go outside and write a bit. Be creative. You don't just have to write about your day. Pick a word, write a poem, write a song. I am a big doodler, so I like to doodle, and I have journals everywhere with just doodles and little pictures, and they mean something to me, but they may not, they may not transition to anything, but it just helps me kind of get some of that energy out of my system. Make a doctor's appointment. Repeat after me. Make a doctor's appointment. If you haven't had your annual checkup, it's the end of the year, make an appointment. Even if you don't get one until February. That's how the doctors are rolling these days. But make an appointment. Go and get a checkout. Take your notes and your journal and your awareness with you so that you can have a broader conversation. Tell the doctor, especially women of color, I need 10 more minutes. Okay, don't rush out of the room. I've got something to say. Advocate for yourself and be able to share. Listen, this is what I am aware of in this season of my life. And I want to take some time to discuss it with you because I'm concerned about XYZ. All right. So make an appointment. If you have to do like I did, I fired my main primary care doctor, got a new one, made the appointment, and saw the old one and was like, how you doing? And kept it moving because I needed to advocate for my own care. So keep going, find the right person that speaks to your situation and needs. Check in with a therapist. There are, many of us have employee paid insurance, EAP, so employee, what is that? I just lost it. EAP, assistance programs, employee assistance programs that can help you find a clinician. Your health insurance can help you do that. There's also a resource. If you dial 211 from any phone, they can also help you. That's the National Help Starts Here number, 211, just like the information number. But check in with a therapist. That doesn't mean you have to have regular sessions, but just have an initial session with someone that doesn't know you, but will listen and help you connect the dots in your particular situation. I've also included a self-test for SAD. Again, this is not firm medical confirmation. It just helps guide you so that when you make that appointment, you can take that information with you to say, yeah, I did this little test online. I connected with these questions and answers. And so, yeah, that's part of the reason why I am here. Our goal, ladies and gentlemen, is to be our best selves. So in that means being aware of what's happening within us. Stop ignoring signs that something may be going on. If you've had just a little tinge of a headache, a little longer than normal, stop waiting and self-medicating. Go see someone so that you can be your best selves. And then you can run to do the purpose that God has planted within you to do. All right. So we will, I think at this point, if there are any questions, we can definitely go through those. When you get the tools, my contact information is there, and I would be happy to help you navigate to whatever your need is around your wellness. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Such information that we can use just in our daily lives. As you were talking, Reverend Morgan, some things that stood out to me when you talked about those carbs. People don't realize simple things such as carbs and increase in carbs is a sign that, hey, something different is changing. Something
That's
is
right.
different in our lives. And so I was so glad that you pointed out just that simple little thing that people don't recognize.
Yeah.
And then also the SPPR, I think I'm going to use that.
You can have it.
I'm going to use that in one of my sessions.
Yes.
When you were talking about stop, pause, pray, re-engage. And one of the things that stood out to me is a lot of times my clients and patients, they don't want to stop because they feel like I've got to keep going. And then they want to re-engage without going down the tools and interventions that are necessary. And that's where they fail.
That's right. And we're so used, like our environment, right? Our environment seduces us with the need to just keep going and doing and piling things and adding to the plate. But it is not until we stop and then spend time in that pause moment that we can answer some of these questions about ourselves.
Right. And I just have this one thing that I will always keep in my mind. I had a patient, she actually was admitted to the hospital and she kept saying, well, I thought I was going to get better. How many sessions does this take? Like, why do I have to be admitted to the hospital? And I think we were on session 5, and I'm explaining to her that mental health, you have to actually maintain. This is something that you have to work at every day. And especially if you have a mental health diagnosis, depending on the severity, this is a lifelong management of
That's
symptoms.
right. And there is no easy answer. It is mental health care. It is
Yeah,
mental wellness that we're seeking, just like our physical wellness. But if we're not taking care of our physical bodies and we're struggling with our spiritual relationships, then of
mhm.
course we're going to struggle in maintaining mental health and wellness. And so it's not an automatic 3 sessions and you're cured.
Right.
I wish, I wish, but it doesn't work that way.
Right, I know. And another
We've
thing
got to
that
be patient and graceful with ourselves as we are moving through.
we do, and I always say you got to give yourself grace. Just have grace all the way around.
That's right.
One of the things that I love that you also said was pray. It doesn't matter who you pray to, whatever. And I always tell like my clients and patients, spirituality is important. You
Yes,
don't have to be religious. You don't have to be in church 24/7, but you have to have something that's a little bit higher than you
that's right.
so that you can go to that source when you're feeling depressed or you're down or you're symptomatic. So I
Yes.
love that you said that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that it is especially important, and connecting, especially as a Christian, being able to connect with the principles outlined for me in the Word of God. That is an invaluable resource. And so to be able to connect that with my desire and intention to be as well as I can be, listen, you can't go wrong with that because God has already promised that He will never leave, she will never leave or forsake us.
Yes, yes. So true. So, Reverend Morgan, I did have one question for
Sure.
you. How does SAD show up differently, or if you've experienced differences in minority communities, specifically Black women? Does it present differently? Have you seen it show up differently in minority communities?
Well, I think I so SAD is going to show up in any community. However, in communities of color, we often see, at least I have often seen persons already struggling with something else that might be connected that they just weren't aware of, which is why I brought in the piece around awareness. A lot of times we are self-medicating and coping in a way, but we're not really connected with why I'm doing this thing. Why am I taking this? Why am I drinking this? Why am I exposing myself or experiencing or doing this particular behavior when, one, that's not what I want to do. It's not something that I'm used to doing, but it makes me feel better. And so I feel like in our communities, it's especially important for us to begin educating persons of color around grounding and awareness so that we can get to a place where we can connect and identify better, not just with SAD, but everything that's happening to us holistically. We have a disparity in, unfortunately, the community of color around mental health access, medical attention. And so if we can do our best to help hone in and identify and connect with ourselves first, we'll have a better chance of being able to, when we can get to a physician or a therapist, to say, this is what's happening with me. Can you help me unravel it? I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And when you were when you were saying also, encouraging, women, especially Black women, because a lot of times we go to the
Yes,
doctor, the physician, and they want to rush us out or they don't
yes,
understand our history. I
yeah,
love that you said, even if you need 10 more minutes, you make
yeah,
sure that you advocate for yourself.
yeah.
And so my next question is around racism. I know when the George
Mhm,
Floyd incident happened, I had so many people just check in, like they felt like
mhm,
therapy, they couldn't understand
mm,
what was going on. And so, I tell people sometimes our environment, what we're seeing, the stressors in our communities
yes,
cause us to, have either decreased mood or elevated mood. So,
yes.
did you experience any of that, and what racism does, in your opinion, to maybe the minority population, how they experience it a little bit differently? Because this is what we are used to, unfortunately.
Yeah. It is unfortunate that we are still in a day and age where racism is still very prevalent. And especially over the last few years, it being in our faces even more. And so I definitely have experienced an increase. And so people were already kind of struggling with, let's say anxiety and worry and just the environment, the job market, COVID. And then on top of that, just experiencing the police brutality and blatant racism directly or indirectly as we engage in social media and news outlets. Persons definitely are taking in more as a result of the prevalence of racism. And so it's even more imperative that we begin looking at like self-care from a different lens, and some things that we really can control. I talked about control just a bit in my presentation, but we have more control over our situations than we give ourselves credit for. We spend a lot of time trying to control others, but we have a lot of control. Right, we have a lot of control in our own situations. And so, just thinking about places and spaces that don't honor me as a Black woman. Like, I am not going to show up there. I'm not going to attempt to fit in just to get in. I'm going to share in space like this one on today, where I'm celebrated and I am told that I'm worthy, right? And that my mental health, my physical care matters. And so just kind of pulling back a bit, maybe some social media isolation and cutting the television off, and spending some necessary needed time with self.
Yes, I agree. And I guess finally, the joy that I get when especially young Black girls come into the office and they see a therapist that looks like them. I don't know if you've experienced that, or Black families and couples that come in and they see a Black therapist. When I worked for the government full time, people would come in, but they were so nervous about, oh my God, who's my therapist going to be? Who's going to be assigned to me? And so to be able to work with people that look like me and be able to talk to them from a different lens, as you explained, that has been so just beneficial and therapeutic for me, because that change. And when they tell me I've tried, so many other therapists, but they never understood. And so that's why it's important for us in this profession to show up, because we understand the challenges and we understand the difficulties it is just to get a therapist.
Yeah. And as a professional, it's our job to take care of ourselves as well. Right. And so we learn early on in our training, right? Every therapist should have a therapist, right? Do your homework too. But, let me just say, in this space, you are seen. Okay, you are seen, you are heard. Though our numbers as clinicians of color might be just a little lower than standard industry standard, we exist, and we want to help you on your journey. So do your due diligence. There are a number of resources to help clinicians of colors, Black therapists, ROD, Taraji P. Henson or Foundation. Like, there are ways to connect with clinicians that look like you, and just keep going. Don't not have the experience just because the person doesn't look like you, because there are some, and I know we're wrapping up in time, but there are some clinicians who are culturally competent and they are able to meet you where you are, if for no other reason than to listen and then perhaps connect you and refer. So start the journey wherever you can and keep going until you land in the right spaces.
Such valuable information. Thank you so much, Reverend.
You're so very welcome.
Hopefully we will connect again in the future.
Yes.
This has been wonderful information. I think people have gotten just a wealth of information just about the therapeutic process, about SAD, about, it's okay to be a person of color or a Black woman and advocate for yourself. So thank
Yeah.
you so much, my sister.
You are
And
so welcome.
a wonderful, happy holidays. If you need anything from us, please reach out.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Happy holidays to you all, and may the glory of our amazing God shine brightly on you, even as you move through figuring out what your wellness needs are. God bless you.
God bless you too.